Welcome. Hi, Tara Doyle Enneking here, the President and CEO of the Puyallup Sumner Chamber of Commerce. I am very excited about our guest today. I don't know that he needs much introduction. He certainly has covered the vast array of industries, everything from transportation, tourism, communications. He was a former mayor and councilman. More recently, in the last 25 years, property manager, developer. Today, what we're going to take a deeper dive into is his illustrious experience as an ocean explorer. So very excited to have you impart some wisdom on us and all that you've done with your expeditions out in the ocean. So Rick Hansen, so happy to have you.
Thank you. Well, first I need to say that I'm not going to share all of those with you. I'm going to share a few of them because it's 30 years of experience. And a lot of it has a lot of depth and technology and stuff with it. But I will share, I had a little list that I made of some of the ones that are kind of interesting that I did over a period of time, and a couple in particular I'm going to point out just as anomalies in the industry.
Well, timely, sadly, we will hear about some of his connections with the Titan submersible. He will have some information that I think we'll all find very interesting, and just because he's been around that world for so long. But again, just a great pillar in this community, and with our Chamber of Commerce hat on, wanted to let everybody know, you were the first, Puyallup recognized entrepreneur, one of the first in cell service, first in fax services in the area too. So I would say a bit of a industry disruptor, coming in first on a lot of things before that was even a term. So I know you're going to play those down and play lightly because we have this really great topic to say, but again, your contribution to the community, to all that you've helped to develop, to what you have done as mayor, all of that goes, again, with much gratitude, and definitely don't want to brush so lightly my partner in pink here today over the fantastic contributions you've made over time. So
You're very kind.
Thank you. Thank you.
I want to start with kind of, as an ocean explorer, I didn't become an ocean explorer because that's what I wanted to become. Mm-hmm. I was involved in many different businesses, and someone came and brought something to me, and too often when I see an opportunity, I step across a line, and the next thing I know, I'm doing something. and my kids have always said, "What does your dad do?" And they don't know.
Yeah.
And they said, "Well, he does this, he does that." Anyhow, I got involved in ocean exploration, in the 90s. And I got involved in a project up in Alaska that was a paddle wheeler that sunk in 1901, coming back from the gold rush laden with gold. Mm-hmm. And ended up locating it, which is not always easy, as you'll find out later. Sometimes take hundreds of years. Anyhow, I ended up locating it and losing in court to a judge in Alaska who said it's more likely than not that paperwork was destroyed during World War II, and so this other person that says he's found it, he has an agreement with this company, the Salvage Association, so I'm fighting on behalf of him. And so all of our efforts, and they used our side scan sonar and our images and everything that we had, and our agreement with the state, they were able to use all of that we had done because of one person saying more likely than not that a piece of paper was destroyed.
Oh boy.
That's how I started.
Whole other world, yep.
Anyhow, then I got involved internationally with a group called Proceed. There were a bunch of explorers around the world that many of you will have heard of. We all got together to try and find a way to keep what we found, or some of what we were finding. And I ended up being vice president of that, and also another one called Shipwrecks. And I was the token person from the East Coast. Most people were from Europe or the West Coast. Then I got involved in Uruguay in a project. We ended up, that project, I'm not even going to go into, but it was a phenomenal project. Today, there are many shipwrecks 20 miles off the shore of Uruguay. Some which wrecked upon themselves back in the 1600s, 1500s, all kinds of gold and neat things, but they're there, and the country doesn't let you salvage.
Yep.
So there it is.
Well, and so it kind of sounds like there's two whole kind of things to unpack here. One, very curious in what your role typically is when you are now part of a team designated to go after treasure, shipwrecks. But then second, I guess all that governs who exactly has the rights to what the contents are in that discovery.
And I actually went to, I went to a law school back east somewhere to study that, actually. And I also got involved with UNESCO and Europe in fighting some of this. The long and the short is that laws have changed to make it tougher. And at one time, people were discovering Spanish galleons, and then an attorney that I knew, a friend of mine, called them up and said, "Why don't you, Spain, put a claim in?" And so the Juno La Galga, which were being discovered by somebody from Minnesota, all of a sudden he lost those to Spain. And so all the Spanish galleons became tougher. Anyhow, my part usually, and I'll give you an example with a statement, my part usually is people trust me, and I'm responsible. And I mean, most of the time, that's where I end up playing, is that a lot of people involved in underwater salvage have a lot of money, and they like to tell people, over a few drinks, and that's their excitement, and they don't even have to make money. They just, they're, oh yeah, I'm involved.
Sure.
And, anyhow, and my part was that I actually went into a person in Tacoma, visited a person, and asked him to invest in this project in Uruguay, and he, as I was leaving, he said, you're the first person that I've ever said yes to when you just came in and asked me, and I asked him for $250,000 for something.
Yeah.
And I knew of him. I'd met him once before, and he had rejected something based on not getting in at the beginning. The Uruguay project was at the beginning, so I had heard that, went back, and anyhow, but the other one is that, and this is with the Titanic, one of my friends who got me really involved in the Explorers Club and a lot of other things, Peter Hess, he called me one day and said, "Rick, I'd like you to consider being involved with the RMS Titanic group." This was in the 80s. Or, no, it was later than that. This was about 1998 or something. I can't remember the year now, but he wanted me to be part of that group because they were fighting amongst themselves, and he wanted me to buy in so that they could control how it was being run. And I actually made a phone call to someone, I think in Florida, in the day, emails and stuff weren't kept quite like they are.
Sure,
and I lost
some
that
record
one.
keeping, and
I
you
lost
lost
that
it
one.
for good.
It is gone. Anyhow, and he wanted, he actually asked me if I would, want to invest in it, and I can't remember the number. And while my net worth might have been that number, I certainly didn't have the cash for that.
Right.
And my wife would have exploded. But anyhow, so I didn't. But that's how I've been involved most of the time. And more recently, the one that you're going to hear very little about today, the SS Pacific, I was called to be on their board.
Okay.
Specifically, I was the first person on the board, and I am the vice president now. And my reason has to do with my history with paddle wheelers and trust. And so, I mean, that's really what got me into it. Anyhow, real quickly through some of the others. So I was, I should say this too. No, I'll say it later. I was involved in a couple of safes, one which was brought up in Tacoma, and we actually drilled in, and we thought, we don't know what's going to be here. And we were told by a guy who was a safe cracker, he said, well, you're going to find one of two things. Either you're going to find a bunch of money, or you're going to find something left to say I was here first. We found what was left, a penny.
Oh, so exciting.
It was fun. I was involved in a project to look at dredging gold in the Columbia River because there is gold there, but it's right under some dams.
Okay.
And you can only get a few days where you can go there, and we got an agreement with one county, but we couldn't get the other county across because it's, their county borders right in the middle of the Columbia River. Anyhow, so that one didn't happen.
Are you generally diving yourself, or are you the guy up top handling logistics and mitigating the right folks to do?
Yeah, very rare that I dive.
To do the dangerous things.
And the other thing is most of it's deep.
Yeah.
So you don't dive it.
Yeah.
I mean, very, very few of the things I've done, very few, almost none, are shallow. Bringing an anchor up.
Okay.
Maybe was shallow.
Is robotics and
it's all robotics.
Okay.
I didn't bring you a copy, but I've owned working class remote operated vehicles, and I mean just a lot of stuff like that. Then I looked for Sasquatch once. That was part of my.
Oh, so did my mom.
thing.
Maybe your paths crossed at one time.
And even when I was boating one time ago, told me about one out on Olympic Peninsula. And any crazy stories.
Yeah.
Then I also had someone come to me and said, you guys, you do underwater salvage. Well, I do that on land. And I said, really? And so we talked, and he came up, and he was a dowser. You know what a dowser? They look for water. Well, this guy had a necklace, and on the bottom of his necklace he had a bullet right here.
Uh-huh.
And he said, and he found gold and silver in the ground.
Okay.
It's the craziest thing. And I'm looking from my office on the second floor. When he leaves, he can't find his car, and I'm going, I don't know that I don't think this guy's the guy we want. Okay, then I did the government called me to do the Arctic Rose, which is a ship that sunk. All the fishermen died. Mm-hmm. There was no Mayday.
Okay.
Anyhow, and I did that to help them,
mm-hmm.
and a fun project. One of the few things that you would see me do around here at all, because everything was shipwrecks in deep water.
Right.
The anchors, people locally, if you go down the local museums, each museum has an anchor that I was involved in either donating or helping find.
Oh, fantastic.
Which is and these are 1800 like anchors. I mean,
right.
these are
old,
with flukes and things that you don't see.
Right, with ships not attached to them thus far that have a big mystery still to
Yeah,
solve.
we have no idea who was there.
Wow.
But I mentioned that I was friends with a lot of different people in the industry that did big projects, including the SS Republic, a company called Odyssey Marine Exploration.
Mm-hmm.
They found a bunch, tubs of coins in the Mediterranean, brought them back to Tampa,
mm-hmm.
and after 5 years lost to Spain. Mm-hmm. And Spain got all of that, and they got nothing. So that's one of the issues here. When I said I had a ROV, I had an ROV much bigger than this table,
mm-hmm.
and I've also worked with newt suits, which are single atmosphere diving suits. It means you could climb in
mm-hmm.
as you are,
mm-hmm.
and you could breathe. You could go down to 2,000 feet. You had these big metal weird things for hands and elbows and all this, but you could actually operate for a limited time, maybe 8 hours, I think.
Okay.
But we had access to those, never used them actually.
Mm-hmm.
Anyhow, so a lot of different side scan and other things, but let's talk about my involvement with the Titanic.
Mm-hmm.
Well, first of all, I'm going to take my hat off in courtesy to those that died
mm-hmm.
and those that worked on the Titanic. That hat is representative and did come from the RMS Titanic group that's brought up most of the stuff from down there, and I'll talk more about that right at the end.
Yeah, and your connection with some of the passengers as well.
And that is as well, and that person and his son actually.
Mm-hmm.
Anyhow, Peter Hess I talked about as one who tried to get me to buy into the RMS Titanic group.
Mm-hmm.
Pat Klein, a friend of mine from the Atocha. Do you know where the Atocha is down in Florida? Okay, it's the Nuestra de Atocha. Is a Spanish galleon in the Santa Margarita. This is down in Key West, Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And this is piles of gold. I mean, $1 billion worth of gold and silver. 50-pound bars,
wow.
necklaces that are super long, emeralds that weren't on the manifest that when they were diving. Now, this is shallow diving.
Right.
And they're down, they blow a hole out,
mm-hmm.
and they go down, they look to pick this stuff up, and this person, there's pictures of this person underwater, and something's falling down like rain. It was emeralds coming down after they blew the hole. Anyhow, that group, and he had worked hunting for it for years and years, lost his son along the way. Anyhow, Mel Fisher, Pat Klein took a small monument to put at the Titanic, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Again, a good friend of mine.
Yeah.
Rory Golden, I'll talk about later. There's a man named Jim Sinclair, a marine archaeologist. He was president of Shipwrecks, another one I was vice president of. And you've seen him, if you watch any of the underwater shows, expeditions, or whatever you see, most of them, they call him in for something at some point in time because he's an expert. And again, a great friend. All these people have been on the Titanic. They've gone down to the Titanic one way or another, but not with Stockton. Well, a couple have gone with Stockton Rush. Mm-hmm. Okay, my involvement, let's talk about what happened recently in my involvement really with that group. Well, let me say one more thing here first. I went to the Explorers Club in 2000, and there was an award ceremony, and the speaker was a lady named Sylvia Earle, who's world-renowned, but they also had someone you might have heard of. His name was Jean-Michel Cousteau, which is the oldest son of Jacques Cousteau. He was being honored. Then Phil Newton of the Newt suit I talked about, the single atmosphere diving suit, he was being honored.
Wow.
Also was Anatoly Sagalovich, he had the Mir submersibles. He's from Ukraine, but he's Russian, and so they had the boat Kildish that most of the prior dives on the Titanic were made with the Mir submersibles. Incredible guy. I mean, everybody that's ever worked with him, and very safe. Very safe.
Okay.
Then we also, well, a couple other people you wouldn't know, but Ralph White. Ralph White, and I'll just read this. He's very significant to the Titanic. This thing's going to roll off here.
Uh-oh.
How about I put it up?
Yeah, there we go. Let's put it up now.
I keep holding that back. Anyhow, Ralph White, who's since deceased and gave me this plaque I'll show you in a second. He was a cinematographer. He was one of the most experienced people with certain technology and deep ocean photography. In '85, he documented the expedition where it was found. In '87, he co-directed the salvage operation where they recovered 1,400 artifacts from the Titanic.
Wow.
Just all kinds of stuff. He was an expedition leader and second cameraman for the movie Titanic with James Cameron.
Wow.
Anyhow, at this event though, James Cameron was there, and he was mobbed by people everywhere.
Yeah.
But also was a guy named Clive Cussler. If any of you ever read, they're really cool books about diving and stuff. Clive Cussler was there. I got to have a beer with Clive Cussler.
Oh, nice. You have quite the circle of influence there.
He's since deceased, but really cool guy. And then here is, Ralph White gave this to me. He took a handful of coins down to the Titanic on one of his trips.
Okay.
And so he gave me a coin.
He took them down.
He took them down with him, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
he didn't take up.
He didn't bring them up. No, it's not a shame. And the irony was that he didn't have any coins from old Spanish galleons and stuff, and so I was at his place in California, and he had a few little things that he collected in the bathroom. I said, "You don't even have any reales." And so I gave him an 8 reale while I was there.
Yeah.
Felt really good about it.
Oh, boy.
But great guy. Anyhow, let me move now on to the tragedy itself. The Stockton Rush is someone that I knew about because I have friends that have gone down to the Titanic on the Titan and come back. And I have an attorney friend of mine has done some work with him and a lot of other people in the industry. And anyhow, we were going to have lunch in the near future, which isn't going to happen now. But I also know that he did some of his testing at the University of Washington, where we test some of our equipment where you can put pressure on, and we need to have the items we use, because this wreck I'm working on right now is near 2,000 feet, and so we need to be able to have the pressure with any of certain of our tools to make sure they still work down there. Anyhow, I know for a fact that while he was doing some testing, some of his equipment imploded. It couldn't handle the pressure they were doing.
That's part of testing.
He's working towards making it work. And so I knew that about him. And then I also knew that this good friend of mine, this attorney that had been involved with Pro C and other things, was a good friend of his and represented him in certain areas. And we're in contact because we both have Porsches, among other things.
Yes.
And David has a place where they open the road where one time a year in Idaho where you can go as fast as you want.
Yeah.
And he's done it with his son.
Nice.
Anyhow, so we talk about that sometimes, other things. Anyhow, it seems, people look at this and say a lot of different things about not being prepared, and people, the billionaire, what's he doing? People are taking shots at people. And I have some issue with that, in that everybody that's paying money or that's decided they want to go down, that's their own personal decision.
It is.
And if they realize that something may happen or may not, and if they have a lot of money, that has no bearing on it, whether they have a nickel or nothing.
Right.
So everybody that died, it's horrific that they died, period. And the fact that there was a father-son situation, that's just horrible. And so some of the people that I know that that were there. Rory Golden is from Dublin, Ireland,
Mm-hmm.
and he's been down the Titanic multiple times. In fact, my picture with Ralph White at the Explorers Club was with Rory,
Mm-hmm.
and he's the one that when I was getting involved in this, for whatever reason, I guess I don't have enough time on my hands or enough things to do, but I tried to start a website to sell these kinds of things. This is the mug that you would use to drink
Okay.
on the Titanic first class.
In that era, first class,
class.
yes, not
And so
down below.
he was making replicas, and
Mm-hmm.
so I decided to set up a website to sell replicas from
Great.
the Titanic.
Oh, you entrepreneur, you grab every opportunity.
And
First in.
But I got so busy with
Yeah.
things and kids,
Huh.
I couldn't follow through very well with it. I mean, we
Yeah.
sold a few items, and I just didn't even have time to deal with it.
Yeah.
Anyhow, but it was Rory Golden who was involved,
Okay.
and he was on the surface vessel during this happening.
Oh, okay.
And so he would have been very involved in what do we do, who do we call for help.
Right.
He also was involved with David Kincannon, did a project to bring the Atlas engine up
Mm-hmm.
from deeper than the Titanic,
Mhm.
and it now is at Boeing Field. And Jeff Bezos paid for that,
Mhm.
and Rory's been a part of a lot of those projects. Anyhow, Rory was on the surface when this happened.
Right.
I haven't talked to him for a number of years, but I just feel sorry for him, and I know he was quoted on some things, and you listen.
Again, are we using robotics to submerge the vessel, or?
Well, it's not
more-
tethered. The
Right.
Titan was not tethered, but to recover what you're going to recover, there are only a few that have umbilicals or that are robotic or ROVs that can go untended down
Right.
to pick up weight.
Right.
See, one of the biggest issues now to pick up the engines, they had to go deep and have
Mhm.
great lift because those are, if you see them, they're massive engines.
Right.
These are
So
from,
surface vessel is handling comms most likely. I guess for those of us who aren't very familiar with what a submersible vessel, how it's submersing the 2 hours down to the Titanic, how is that happening? And then, how many parties are involved? What size structure? I mean, we've seen some pictures, some videos. Just, is there any other intel you can maybe provide us to understand what was truly happening and how many parties were involved?
Well, each system, submersible or submarine or
Mhm.
the Mears or the Titan, each one has a different set of protocol that they're dealing with. And so
Mhm.
you may have way more screens, way more communication devices, you may be testing hull structure different.
Okay.
The one that even though I know they had something on board that would tell them, so they may have known before it imploded, they may have known that it was imploding because they're seeing some
The water
sensors that
pressure.
are telling
Mhm.
them stuff. Well, yeah, I'm thinking delaminating, not the pressure is whatever the pressure is,
And it
but
happens.
what
and
it's doing to the vessel. And so
Okay.
it could have been a few seconds. It could have taken. They could have said, "Well, it looks like there's something happening here."
Mhm.
Anyhow, but losing communication, and that's it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yep.
it's just it. And the ability to come up quickly isn't really there.
Right.
I can remember I did a night dive years ago, and I lost my light, and
Mhm.
it was a cloudy night, so there's no moon,
Mhm.
and you don't know whether you're up or down.
Mhm.
You're in the water, you're floating somewhere.
Right.
I was at about 45 feet, and I'm going, okay, I can't see anything. It's completely black.
Oh.
Now, I need to get to the surface eventually, and so I had a little button to put air in my buoyancy compensator, and so I put some air in, and I'm going, I don't want to go too fast.
Right.
Anyhow, I came out of it like a porpoise. I came whoof
Yeah.
out, and I go, oh, but what do you do? Anyhow, so
Yeah.
there's so many unknowns,
Sure.
and that's what these things. That's what happens from this, though. As you go through and you go, and at the next time you go down, you learn a little bit more. The next time you go down, you change something, you learn, you're tweaking it.
Right.
It's kind of like trying to figure out how your motorhome works. There's so many
Yeah.
buttons and things, you never know what's going to happen. Anyhow, then I want to share another really significant thing, and that is that I have a friend. His name is G. Michael Harris.
Mhm.
He was the COO and the co-founder of the RMS Titanic, this group,
Mhm.
and I met him also at the Explorers Club. Had dinner with him,
Mhm.
and he shared with me a very personal story. He did get his son to go down. He's the youngest person that's gone down, Sebastian. He was 13 years old in 2005.
Mhm.
Still the youngest to ever go down.
Okay.
Anyhow, Oh, so he's talking to me, and he's praying and doing different things, and going interesting guy, and then he shares his story. And so he was down. He went down the Titanic with the mere submersibles, which have had no accidents. And he came up, and I've got video of this, and it shows they're trying to connect to the submersible, and it is bouncing all over. The sea state is probably 10-foot swells, maybe bigger, and they can't connect to him. And he knows he has 8 minutes of air left inside.
Terrifying.
Yeah, and he's right next to the kill dish, the recovery boat. And they've got the little porthole they look through, but he's sitting in there, and so for the first time in his life he prayed. First time ever. He said, I've never prayed before, but I prayed. He said, I prayed so hard I didn't know if I was really praying or what was happening. And
love it.
all of a sudden the sea state changed. It got calm. They were able to capture it, bring him aboard, and just as he was getting aboard, it went right back to what it was before.
Ooh, power of prayer.
And so whenever when there's communication on Facebook with him, it always has, thanks be to God or something like that. And again, anybody that's been down there or has people that are friends that have done that or done this kind of thing, your heart goes out
There's
to
a
them.
relatable.
I mean, I don't care any of the reasons of anything else. And then the other one I have two more things I want to share. One is my friend David Kincannon, the one who has the Porsche.
Yes. Your Porsche friend. We can do a whole other story on that. Pull my husband in too.
And he's got a really cool wife that writes really cool stories and stuff. Like things about elephants. Anyhow, all kinds of cool stuff.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Anyhow, he put together the mission to retrieve the Atlas during the Atlas space program, the Atlas engine. So that's a fairly recent, like 5 years ago. He did work for Stockton Rush as an attorney, as an advisor in different things. He made a trip to on the Titan to the Titanic, and he was scheduled on that particular trip.
Oh, geez.
Absolutely scheduled to do it, and he had to go to Bermuda. I think it was Bermuda because he's on the board of a museum down there. Anyhow, he had to go somewhere, but he also does litigation on underwater things that occur underwater, and so he's busy. Anyhow, so he couldn't do it, and so how do you think he feels?
Yeah.
That he has friends that went down there that didn't come back, and had he been there, I mean, he gave a little thing on Facebook the other day. He couldn't even talk. I mean, it was just a very heart-rendering thing, and again, it's like so many niche industries. I mean, this is a very small group of people worldwide. It isn't a lot of people that have been involved in this stuff.
Right.
And my comment is that I had a chance to do this stuff, but I had pressure from home that did not allow me to do this.
Thank you, wifey.
A little bit of resistance in the house.
Sure.
But anyhow, you think about that. These are friends of mine. Some that went, some that didn't go, some that have gone before, some that have created some of the history.
Right.
And you're reading about somebody that tried something different. And so I'm just going to show this one item here.
It's a little heavy.
This thing is heavy. This is called implosion art.
Okay, that could help paint a picture here for us.
A friend of mine who worked for Oceaneering. In fact, he climbed the Twin Towers with me right before they went down. His wife did this. She came up with the idea of doing what's called implosion art.
Okay.
And because he was doing all this stuff at deep water, she created this. And this has steel bearings inside it or something, so it can't really be collapsed upon it. But it was tight as you could be.
Right.
When it went down.
Right.
And you can see these two ends, of course, are fine, but the cylinder is not.
Right.
And one of the biggest complaints that they make, that they've been making about Stockton Rush, is that his vessel was a cylinder, whereas the others are a circle. They're round, and so when you take a sphere, and you put the pressure on, it's equal in all points.
Right.
Okay. He made something out of a different material.
Right.
It wasn't spherical, so that the pressure is different on that.
So carbon fiber versus titanium, I think, is what I was hearing.
But it isn't just the carbon
fiber.
It's if the whole thing was carbon fiber, even the ends. you're still going to have your pressure is going to be different in the
Right.
cylinder than if
Because
you
of the
had-
shape.
Yeah, because of the shape.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyhow, there's just there's so much that it's going to come out of this.
Sure.
And I just hope a lot of bad things don't come out of it,
Right.
because this was
A
experimental.
lot of people are swinging at a lot of
They are.
yeah,
They are.
interesting things and what
friends,
you learn.
friends of
from
mine
it.
are saying things that I understand where they're coming from, but I think I've always, my successes have been business, have been really twofold. One is the ability to see a global or as big a picture as I can,
Right.
and then make it smaller to come down to, well, can I actually do something
Mhm.
after I've looked at the global picture, and to not jump ahead of yourself,
Mhm.
and then make creative decisions or new, stepping into new things
Mhm.
people haven't done before. And pretty much every business I've had my successes because of that ability.
Mhm. I would say that's a great asset
Yeah.
of yours.
Not that my successes have been that great, but I've had some successes.
You've got quite the business card, I would say, and are very well connected. What's next for you? What are you busying yourself with lately? I know you're an avid boater and RV and
Well, the
explorer and grandpa.
Well, the RV thing's popped up a little bit because we had a daughter that my wife doesn't fly, so we decided to buy an RV to go see our daughter, who has since moved to Seattle.
Mhm.
So we didn't need that
Mhm.
RV, but we're happy with it, we think, and I'm a national director of the Family Motor Coach Association.
Oh boy, is there anything you get
And
involved with that you don't
well, I
end
didn't-
up at the helm?
I don't know how that happened, but I really, spending time with grandkids is really what you want to do with
Yep.
family and grandkids. But I do have another project,
Okay.
and this is the one I told you earlier that I got a call from a friend. I knew about this project, the SS Pacific,
Yes.
and I knew about it for many years. I actually gave sites I got from fishermen where they had hangs,
Mhm.
where it could be, and I gave that actually to the person who's president of this company with me. I gave it to Jeff, and he was on the ship working for another company. He
Okay.
was actually worth them looking at the sites that I gave way back
Yeah.
then. I mean,
Oh,
we
wow.
didn't know each
No,
other
you're
then.
yeah.
But it was funny that happened. And anyhow, so he calls one day. This is like 7 years ago, and my wife's in the car. We're driving up to our daughters, and says, "Hey, Rick, what's going on?" I said, "Not much. My wife and I are going up to see our daughter and grandkids." He said, "Hey, I'd like to talk to you about something. I'd like you to be on the board of a company I'm starting." And my wife's over there.
No more boards.
And then he said, well, and he told me what it was, and then I knew that, and I know it because it's the last shipwreck around here that has
Sure.
cargo that might have
Treasure.
stuff in it. Anyhow, so I told him, "Can I get back to you?"
Yeah.
And then I was able to get Karen to agree with certain conditions.
Mhm.
And then I've gotten way more involved than I thought. I mean, I am on the board.
So there's a board that's formed again, kind of going back to the technicality of, somebody discovers a ship and then puts some sort of claim on it, or what do you call that process? And then it
We
sounds
are-
like you even formalize yourself to having a board. How does
Yeah.
what's at play there?
Okay, well, we formed a board. We formed an LLC for this specific project.
Okay.
Well, in this case, actually, it's more than that, but for ocean exploration. And
Okay.
This is our first project, you
Okay.
could say. And you have to go locate, and to locate it took us several years. And this was hard. I mean, this one was much harder to locate than probably pretty much any other one I've ever looked for. And there's a particular reason that you'll learn about maybe a year from now.
Okay.
Anyhow, but we finally said yes. We measured some things. That's got to be it. Did some more measuring and found an octopus right in the bow.
Exciting,
Right in front of
yeah.
it. Anyhow, and so that was that. And so then you have to bring something up from the bottom, and you then take it to federal court and you arrest the cargo, tackle, and apparel of distressed vessel unknown,
Okay.
likely to be.
That's specific.
Anyhow,
Okay.
and then you give a notice to the world
Okay.
for a certain amount of time, I think 90 days or something, anyhow, and anybody in the world can come and claim that it's theirs or something on it is theirs. And I think we had 4 people come.
Okay.
3 people and an insurance company. We knew going in that there was an insurance company that had paid for a small bit of gold that was on there that was being transported. And so we had already been in contact to try and have an agreement with them in advance.
Is this an 1800s boat again or 1900s?
This is
how far?
18.
18s.
Yeah,
Wow.
this is
Okay.
1875.
Oh wow.
1850.
And the insurance company is still around.
The insurance
Still
company,
claiming
well, no,
gold.
it's subrogated. No,
Okay.
They if they had anything, they gave it to somebody else, and this other group is handling all those kind of claims
Okay.
for anybody, whether they're here or not.
Okay.
And so we have, we have some discussion going on there.
Yep.
From the individuals that come, we had some people just say, my great grandfather, 2 removed, had a bunch of stuff on there. Can you give me a copy of the manifest?
Oh, sure.
So they're looking to see
Yeah.
what's
What do
there.
we have? That's his.
And the manifest went down with the ship.
Right.
So there is no manifest.
yeah,
And we're not, I'm sure, I don't see how we possibly are recovering the manifest.
Right.
But we wouldn't give it to them anyhow.
Right.
But anyhow, so that's how people can come after
Okay.
it. And it used to, there have been a lot of big battles. There's a book called Ships of Gold on the Central America. And you would have read, people would have seen pictures of the gold off of it at one time. There was a guy that didn't pay his investors. He went on the lam. They finally found him in Florida. He's now in jail, but he won't tell them where he hid a whole bunch of the gold.
Oh, boy.
And, a whole bunch of, it's just weird stuff. And,
Yeah.
and that's why, even when we were doing the project in Alaska, we actually did a trade with a gun company that puts out a 50 caliber rifle that we gave them a share so we could have the rifle to protect us from the modern day pirate.
Oh,
Now, that
boy.
never came about, but they agreed to it.
Right.
And so,
Yeah.
this particular one now is, it's offshore, not very far, but it's, again, far enough to be out of there's a sanctuary out there, marine sanctuary. We are not in that, thank God.
What's kind of that horizon? What time frame do you think is ahead of you to kind of really put this to bed and uncover all that you're going to uncover? And
It's probably a 4 to 6 year project.
4 to 6 years, okay.
And we're having to make a lot of tools that nobody's done this before the way we have to do it. And so we're having to build a lot of stuff. And our plan is to use Starlink for remote operators on land
Right.
to be working equipment that's under
Right.
the water. That's our plan. And just a side note, so apparently there was an article that was put in something back east, and what's his name with Starlink? What's his name?
Not Bezos.
No,
the,
the other one.
The other one.
The other one.
Schultz. No.
No,
This is terrible. Oh, Tesla.
Musk.
Elon Musk. One of our favorites.
Okay. Anyhow, Elon Musk read it, and he put a tweet out.
Yep.
And just saying that we're going to be using the Starlink.
Yep.
And he put this tweet out, and I think 6.8 million people responded, or 8 million people responded. So 8 million people now know about our project from his one post.
Well,
I thought that was kind of
I was going to say that could be advantageous to you at some point,
So if we're trying to hide
possibly.
this project,
Yeah, it's out there.
it's going to get harder to hide it when 8
Yeah.
million people hear it. But again, it's just amazing things. And a couple other things with that, or one other thing, is that it's 1850. I can't even remember the date now. Anyhow, it's 1 year or 2 years after Levi Strauss put out Levi's, and we might find some Levi's down there.
Oh wow, we've got some serious artifacts you're about to pull up.
Yeah.
Well, this is
Yeah, that was
exciting.
down the road.
So many interesting people in our community. Definitely, you have quite the illustrious background, and this part of it is something that I don't know we've ever explored much of. So
Most people don't hear about that.
fascinating. Yeah, and for you to be as into it and as connected as you are and share your story is really special. I hope, in the near future, you'll potentially give us an update on the SS Pacific so we can explore along there with you.
We will.
I'll say my brain was doing a deep dive with you so deep that I couldn't even come up with Elon Musk's name. So shame on me for that one. Darn it, we both weren't there. We're too into it. But hey, thank you so much, Rick. This was wonderful to hear a little bit more about your story and your journey, and appreciate you sharing it with our chamber community here. So I hope